Today, the Bank of Canada announced no further interest rate decrease, which is a bit surprising. I thought people were thinking of one more this year. But interest rates are actually somewhat low, not as low as it used to be a few years ago, but a lot lower than it was 2 years ago. I had to suffer through it. And when I thought once it drops, the market was going to go bonkers and rent's going to go through the roof and home prices are going to go through the roof and everyone that owns a home, their net worth is going to go higher, but it hasn't happened. And it looks like it's a bloodbath. The condo market in Toronto has been horrible. The rent market has been horrible for a landlord, great as a tenant. What do you guys think? Do you think this is the right time to buy? Or do you think it's better to hold off and wait? And
is it bad for a landlord and good for a tenant right now?
Well, it depends on what the topic is. If you're talking about the landlord tenant board stuff, sure, it's good for a landlord. But if you're talking about rent prices, when relatives of mine used to rent something for $2,400 a month, now they can't even get $2,000 a month.
Yeah.
Before we would be happy when tenants left because we're like, oh, perfect, we can raise the rent by $100 or $200 more, and now it's the opposite. So I would think it's not as good as to be a landlord, better to be a tenant right now.
That's tough. As someone who is not a homeowner and the concept of it just seems so far away. As a current tenant, I feel that, it used to be that you pay for what you get what you pay for, but I don't think that's the case now. And I remember we talked about how with tariffs, it takes a while for things to take effect.
Yeah.
I think it'll take a while for things to take effect with this as well. Like they say, it's maybe prices aren't going up anymore, but we're still feeling it. I think.
Yeah, and on that note, you kind of do have to play that balancing act of, okay, do I want height? Do I want location? Do I want do I want it to be built in
so
2018 or 1990? And I don't have a lot of history to go on in terms of being personally affected by rent prices, right? But it's definitely it's still costing a pretty penny, from what I've seen of myself and friends. And
it is
in terms of getting into the market. I mean, it might just be the algorithms, but I certainly see a lot more of people saying, hey, the home prices are getting too high, more than I see them saying, hey, they're kind of dropping off the cliff. And so I'd be curious about, if that's the general narrative, you'd have to imagine the initiative is, whether it's decreasing zone in-laws or whatever you're doing to drop those prices. I would imagine that would be more of the initiative and maybe, a deterrent from getting into that market at the moment.
Well, one of the solutions to help everyone out is to build more homes.
Yeah,
especially
absolutely.
if you're trying to buy a home or even rent. That allows prices to go down. It's economics, supply and demand.
That takes time, right?
It takes time.
Yeah.
I think either the city of Toronto or the province of Ontario, I think housing needs to have 500,000 new homes built every year, and it's about 200 or 300,000. 200,000 is an average, I believe, right? So every year we're like 300,000 fewer homes that need to be built. So that's more strain on everyone else. And the landlords are, making a killing because they have this, this where the supply and the demand curve are not meeting in an optimal space, and it benefits the landlords.
Yeah. And something that I know I've read about recently too, is you have this positive and negative effect of rent control. Where rent control, it's created for a good reason, and it's because if you can afford a place 1 year and you're making the same amount of money or even a little more, you should be able to afford it the next year. But the downside of it is that you have landlords with empty buildings that they don't want to lock in at current rates and be stuck in cheap rent for the next 10 years, and so those buildings are just going empty for months or years on end. And then to comment on the supply and demand. It's built, but if they're not filling it, then it might as well not be, right? Yeah. And so in that case,
well, that's what happened. That's how the market is crashing, because in the boom in, say, 2018, 19, 20, 21, where there was a lot of condos being built, people signing up for condos, thinking it's going to keep going up, and they bought a condo for like 800,000. Now that condo is like worth 550. And now they can't even afford the mortgage, or it's not what they were planning on. and then they can't charge the same rent they were planning on, right?
Yeah.
So it's just not a great situation to be a landlord. But I
Yeah,
get it.
not
I
at
get
all,
it.
yeah.
Not everyone is an owner of a property, and I have a lot of younger relatives, and they want to get into the game, and it's just hard, right? Like how the heck do you? Like I wouldn't be able to, because I'm older. Thankfully, I lucked out in that. But if I was coming up the ranks now, and even if I had success in my career, I don't know how the heck I'm going to afford a house. It's impossible, right? And,
Yeah.
with the prices as high as it is, and as much taxes as we pay, and incomes are good but not great, right? So, yeah.
Well, and renting has its advantages as well. There's just a big difference if that rent is 20 or 25 or 30 or 50% of your income, right?
Right.